What are you doing to combat climate change? Well, after the Slave Lake fire in 2011 wiped out most of that town, there's a company based in Athabasca, Alberta called YWL that decided there has to be a better way to stop these fires. After looking at all the variables, they decided the best way would be to utilize remote standing water reservoirs. They then spent the next several years developing the Trident pump. Now, some people may argue forest fires are a natural part of a forest's life cycle, but anyone who thinks like this isn't taking our current situation into consideration. Climate change actually ramped up after the Second World War when CO2 levels really started to rise. There was a period of development where mankind started expanding. The population grew from 2 billion in 1950 to 7.2 billion in 2017. One side effect of this expansion is deforestation. Since then, mankind has clear-cut over 60% of all forests on Earth to make room for a growing population. Now remember, trees convert CO2 into oxygen, and while doing so, they scrub over 1 ton of CO2 and other pollutants from the atmosphere each year. But when you cut them down, it takes between 40 and 200 years for these seeds to grow back to maturity. Now, take away over half the plant's CO2 filtration ability, factor in CO2 from industrial emissions, coal, biomass, and don't forget each year, forest fires alone emit more CO2 into the atmosphere than the combined emissions of all transport systems on Earth. Add these all up and you end up in our current situation. Think of the planet as your car and forests as the car's radiator. The car runs trouble-free in part because the radiator keeps the engine from overheating. But poke a hole in the rad and the car will immediately overheat and quit. By removing 60% of the Earth's forests, we are essentially poking a hole in our Earth's radiator and causing the planet to overheat. So we can either quit using all fossil fuels, which doesn't make any sense at this point, or we can quit allowing forest fires to burn out of control simply because there's no assets in harm's way, and quit clear-cutting forests. This leads us back to remote standing water. In Canada and most of the US, you can't travel 5 kilometers without running into a large body of water. So why doesn't forestry utilize this water to stop these fires? Simple, because the pumps they would need to move that amount of water weigh in excess of 10,000 pounds each, which means they're far too bulky to go off-road. But what if someone had a pump that weighed just 500 pounds, and that pump could outperform the larger pump? Well, you'd be handing forestry the very tool they need to stop these fires in their tracks. This is where the Trident pump comes into the picture. Current high-volume pump technology requires large diesel engines because they have high torque at low RPM. These pumps weigh in the tens of thousands of pounds and require third-party equipment and are very labor-intensive to manipulate into place. Because of their size, they consume between 20 and 50 gallons of diesel per hour to pump water. Here's a typical pump displaying its output through a 6-inch orifice. And here's one of our pumps mounted on a side-by-side, discharging just as much as a pump that weighs 25 times as much. Because of our patented design, Trident pumps can outperform these pumps by using variable torque multiplication. 2 benefits of its new design are: we can push water much higher than current pumps. Our pumps only burn 4 to 5 gallons per hour of regular pump gas, which is at least 4 times more fuel efficient than current technology. That's right, a 4 times fuel reduction, and can outperform them as well. This doesn't even take into consideration the third-party equipment fuel consumption that's required for the large bulky pump setup. Not to mention, in 2018, all diesel engines have to be Tier 4 final compliant, which means they need added exhaust filtration to prevent particulate pollution, which will lower their rated output and increase fuel consumption even more. Our pumps don't burn diesel and are already compliant. Our pumps can be used in multiple applications, such as mine dewatering, fire protection services, pumping services for fire stations, so fire trucks don't need to get stuck off-road anymore, replace current water pumping stations with our new technology. Our pumps can push water higher than any pump on the market right now, so fire trucks can actually reach taller buildings from the ground using our technology. There's multiple uses for these pumps worldwide. For more information, please visit www.tridentpumps.ca. Thank you.